So today I wanted to make a video about the whole Trudeau government gun control push. And this article is out of the Fraser Institute, and they have came up with the numbers. Again, obviously it's impossible to know exact numbers, but the whole proposal of a gun buyback program would likely cost billions of dollars. That yes, you heard that right, billions. And it's absolutely insane because we already know that, take Toronto for example, 83%. I don't think know if that's the exact number, but it's in the low to mid 80s percent of guns are already coming from the states, which means they're already illegal, and a outright gun ban would have zero effect on crime, or on at least crime when it comes to those guns. So we know that that we're dealing with what 15, 16, 17% of guns that are actually sourced legally at some point in Canada. Again, they may be legally 20 years ago, you don't know. So I think anybody looking at it with a rational, objective view knows that any gun control policy in Canada would have at most a five, if you're being really generous, a 10% effect on crime at most. And that's assuming that, again, the criminals are going to follow the laws. My guess is it would have no more than a 5% because the, the demand for guns is still going to stay the same, in which case they're just going to ramp up the production or the smuggling of guns from the states, basically, or other countries too. I know some of them come from outside of the states, but the whole point being of this video is that I think gun control is a very important issue, and why I talk about it so much is that it's an issue that a lot of conservatives kind of sleep on because, well, I'm not a gun owner, why would I care, or whatever reasons that they have. But one of the big things, and people always scoff at it, but why the Second Amendment exists is to prevent against a tyrannical government. Now, whenever you bring this up, people always scoff and be like, "Oh, the government has drones and the government has nukes and all this kind of stuff." Well, if they have that, well, whatever. But the whole point being is that for a tyrannical government to exist, you need the boots on the ground, ways of going about it. Like if you armed every North Korean citizen, do you really think that I mean, maybe they've brainwashed people so much to the extent that they wouldn't fight back, but let's just assume that they are conscious of how tyrannical things are, and you gave everyone a gun, specifically like a semi-auto, AR-15 or anything along those lines. The government would fall in a day. Like the people would fight back, and it'd no longer be a tyrannical regime. So that's why the left wants to it. It's not because they care about safety. Like you're going to save what 10, 20 people a year by doing this kind of stuff. You're going to spend billions of dollars. Like you're going to spend like $50 million a person. Like if you, like I said before, if you put that money into cancer research, if you put that money into heart disease, if you put that money even to advertising to people to be healthier, you would save hundreds of times more lives than a gun control, this BS. That the real reason they want gun control, and why every regime throughout history has wanted gun control, this is going back to the 1700s in the US. The government wants to be able to, again, it doesn't mean that they're planning on it 100%. They just want the idea that, hey, if we impose some law that's not popular, well, what are the citizenry going to do? They can't fight back. They don't have guns. But if they have guns, like I say, if the government wanted to increase taxes to 100% tomorrow, well, they would have to, and let's say people decided not to pay it, well, they'd have to go door to door and arrest people, or at least give them a talk and be like, hey, you owe us money. And if people had no guns, well, what are they going to do? The people coming to the door have guns. But if you had guns and your neighbors had guns, well, you'd recognize the police or whoever coming to the door, and they'd give you the knock, and you'd give your neighbor a call, and he'd come over, and you'd come out with your gun. And because those people don't want to die for, they're not making that good of money, they wouldn't do it. It would happen. It would stop instantly. And that's why you see you have all these soldiers from, or military personnel from Virginia that have came out and said, yeah, if the government orders me to go door to door, I wouldn't do it. And number one, because it's unconstitutional. Here it should be unconstitutional, but it isn't. And it goes against their conscience, and they don't want to die because they know that a lot of these guys have, they got semi-autos, some of them even got full autos. They don't want to die for some BS. I mean, they got to know in the back of their head that it's complete BS too, that it's not going to actually help improve public safety. So they know in the back of their head that it wouldn't happen. So the whole "oh, the government has nukes and drones" argument, it's retarded, because for a tyrannical government to exist, they need boots on the ground, and the only way they can have boots on the ground is if there's no pushback from people with guns. It's a very simple concept. Like I always say, it's not hard to understand. So that's the whole point of it. And the point of this, like I say, the main reason the left, when you in the most basic of scenarios, is that the left wants gun control because they want the ability to put in these kind of laws. Like the Trudeau government's already hinted around it, anti-free speech laws. I mean, they keep raising taxes. They want to be able to impose a much bigger carbon tax, all this kind of stuff. And the Canadian citizenry is, they're not armed nearly as good as the average person in the States, but you can still be pretty well armed in Canada. Like there's some decent non-restricted semi-autos that are, pretty quite a bit of firepower you could have. Um, you can have any bolt action you want. You can have pretty much any shotgun you want. Handguns are restricted, which you can technically have, but the problem with that is that they're going to know exactly where you are. I mean, unless you're lying to them, but if you're lying to them, you're risking being thrown in jail if they ever catch you. So I wouldn't suggest that. But like non-restricteds is like they can loosely track you with non-restricteds, but non-restricteds can be, you can give your buddy it if he has got a non-restricted PA out, you have a non-restricted PA, you can give guns back and forth. Like, so restricted, you can't just be like give them to, hey, you can go shoot my gun. You're not allowed to do that. At least I don't think. But non-restricted, you can. So it's they have probably a relatively good idea of where a lot of non-restricted gun owners live, but not that good. And there's a lot of, especially in the country, there's a lot of farmers and whatnot that don't have their licenses that still own hunting rifles and shotguns that they wouldn't expect. So, but that's a bit of a tangent. But the whole point of this video is that I just wanted to make a video because for all you people still on the fence, now I don't know if there's many watching this, but if you are, about the whole gun control idea, are you really honestly going to look someone with a straight face and be like, yeah, we're going to spend billions of dollars to cut crime, like low single digit percentages. We're going to save maybe 10, 20, 30 people a year. Like, are you honestly going to look someone in the face and say that with a straight face and think that you're being objective? Like, come on. Like I said, in the States, you got about 10,000, I think it's 8,000 people a year that die of guns, at least homicides. And you got like a million people between heart disease and heart disease and other major cancers that die. So we're talking, literally like 1%. Like if you could cut heart disease and cancer by 1%, you'd already save more than if you stopped every single homicide with a gun. Like it just goes to show that they don't care about. They always make the, if it could only save one life argument. They always make that argument, but it becomes completely contradicted when you think about it in the way that I just brought it up. So I don't want to talk about this too much more, but I wanted to make a video about it because I think, like I say, gun control is a very important issue, and it needs to be talked about more because Canadians kind of poo-poo it and be like, oh, we don't want to be like the States. Like that's something I really can't stand about Canadians too, is they always poo-poo the States when it comes to a lot of stuff that they're clearly have superior laws and or are better at. Like they poo-poo the States' patriotism, but then on the other hand, you have all these people in Canada, we get a carbon tax imposed on us and we just roll over and take it up the what. But in France, they have, tens of thousands of people, having yellow jacket protests, pretty much all the time. In the States, you have the governor of Virginia threatening to take over people's guns. They have 25,000 people show up to the Capitol, a lot of them with guns. Like, Canadians need to take note of that. Like, I don't want to crap on Canadians too much, but we like to think that we're a little like our, what doesn't stink when it comes to this kind of stuff. And we really need to take note of that kind of stuff because we're kind of getting taking it up to what when it comes to this kind of stuff, and we really need to fight back a little bit. But anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.